Welcome to the Broadman Word. This is Pastor Kyle, and again, I'm just excited to be here with you all. The Broadman Word is taking place today in my kitchen. It's pretty cool, not gonna lie. Didn't think I would do a Broadman Word here, but yeah, that's what the Lord had in mind. So let's get right into it. A couple days ago, we talked about the peace of God in Isaiah chapter 26, verse 3. We looked at how in order to get the peace of God, not only do we have to pray and to think about God, but we have to trust in Him. So it's not just all about the head or about what we say, but it's about the heart, correct? So the thing that I want to look at today is Psalm chapter 4, verse 8. And here we're going to see a little bit about how the peace of God really is a way for us to know that God is listening to us. And again, that has huge implications on my life, specifically with my fight with anxiety and depression that I've gone through and that I've thankfully learned how to cope with, but I'm still going through for sure, right? This verse and Isaiah 26:3 were incredibly helpful. Not just, again, because they talk about the peace of God, peace is really important for folks that, like myself, that deal with depression and anxiety. Peace is a really important word, right? But it's not just about that. It's about everything in the context of that verse and understanding that verse for what it really, really means. So let's read Psalm chapter 4, verse 8. And then I want to read for you everything that comes before it, because verse 8 is the last verse of the chapter. So Psalm chapter 4, verse 8 is this: "In peace I will both lie down and sleep, for you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety." And you can already see there how peace is a way that we can see that God is listening to us. I will both lie down and sleep, a very comforting stance. The reason why is because for you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety. I know that you're there, right? Now, the reason why I think this verse shows us how the peace of God knows that God is there for us and God is listening to us is because of everything that comes prior. Context is so important for sure when it comes to Scripture. So, chapter 4, verses 1 through 7, this is what it says. "Answer me when I call, O God of my righteousness. You have given me relief when I was in distress. Be gracious to me and hear my prayer. O men, how long shall my honor be turned into shame? How long will you love vain words and seek after lies? Selah. But know that the Lord has set apart the godly for himself. The Lord hears when I call to him. Be angry and don't sin. Ponder in your own hearts on your beds and be silent. Selah. Offer right sacrifices and put your trust in the Lord. There are many who say, 'Who will show us some good?' Lift up the light of your face upon us, O Lord. You have put more joy in my heart than they have when their grain and wine abound." So, how do we know that the peace of God is a result of us knowing that the Lord is there for us and that He is listening to us? Well, right off the bat, it really does kind of show us that in chapter 4, verse 1. "Answer me when I call, O God, my righteousness. You have given me relief when I was in distress. Be gracious to me and hear my prayer," right? So right away in verse 1, we see that there's this call for God to not just answer, but are you there? Are you listening? And He is, because of verses 2 and 3. "O men, how long shall my honor be turned into shame? How long will you love vain words and seek after lies?" This author of the psalm, which we think is David, we can get into that some other day, right? But we think is David. So let's say David, but for this purpose, the author of the psalm. So the author of the psalm is dealing with this moment of crisis that he thinks that he is stuck. This honor that he thought he had is turning into shame. and he just sees that the people that he's around, maybe even himself a little bit, are loving vain words and seeking after lies. But there is one thing, and it's verse 3. But know that the Lord has set apart the godly for himself, and the Lord hears when I call to him. Even with all the doubt and the distress that are in verse 2, verse 3 comes forth and says, you know what? We don't have to worry because the Lord sets apart or makes holy. That's the cool part about this verse in verse 2. It makes holy the godly for himself, for God. And then the Lord hears when I called him, but that I could also turn into you if you are a follower of Christ. And that's the really exciting part, correct? But it gets better, right? So be angry and don't sin. Ponder in your own hearts on your beds and be silent. Offer right sacrifices and put your trust in the Lord. So even through all these circumstances, don't get angry, don't sin, ponder in your hearts. And when I think it says ponder in your hearts and be silent, I honestly think he's the author of the psalm. I think he honestly is calling for us to pray. It's not just being silent. Obviously, we can pray out loud, we can pray to ourselves, but it's pondering in our hearts. I personally think he's calling us to prayer in that phrase there in the second half of verse 4. Then verse 5, offer right sacrifices and put your trust in the Lord. That trust, again, being the foundation of how we get the peace of God that we saw in Isaiah 26:3. Then we get to the end. Right before verse 8, there are many who say, who will show us some good? Lift up the light of your face upon us, O Lord. And so people are asking, okay, where's the Lord? What's going on? So Lord, show up if you do hear us. And well, he does. Because when he shows up, there is nothing that compares. There is nothing that compares. The end of verse 7. Then they, or verse 7 total, you have put more joy in my heart than they have when their grain and wine abound. Grain and wine is just talking about really just temporary material things. Is it saying that we have to eat grain and wine? We have to eat grain and drink wine all the time? No. It's not saying that. But it's saying that the material things, they cannot satisfy you. But the Lord does, because he puts joy in your heart, which then leads to peace in verse 8. In peace I will both lie down and sleep, for you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety. I, knowing that you are the one that when I answer, you call, when I know that even through the midst of chaos, that you are there, that you have set me apart as I am a child of God, because I put my trust in Jesus. You have set me apart as holy, and therefore I know that you are listening, and I know that you will respond in your way. Talking about the Lord, right? All of that goes forward to knowing that the Lord has us and that we are safe in his arms, which, when it says in peace, I will both lie down and sleep, is that metaphorical? Yes, I think it does show how the Lord gives us safety. Now we can dwell in that safety, but I also think it's literal. I think that helps us to rest. This verse was huge, allowing me to know that because I believe that the Lord is sovereign, which when I was going through anxiety and depression, moments of those, I knew that the Lord is sovereign, but I sometimes struggled believing that. Well, when I really believe that, I know I can rest in him, and that helped tremendously. And so I think that's what verse 8 is getting at. It's getting at the fact that the peace of God, we know that we have it when we know that the Lord is sovereign and that he will answer us when we call. And that is how we experience peace. So it's a great combination with Isaiah 26:3, and I'm glad to share that with you. And hopefully you go forth in the peace of God. And I will see you next week on Tuesday. But more importantly, we'll see you for the Broadman Word tomorrow.